I understand the challenge that we're about to play the best team in the ACC. And we're going to need to do some things and play our best to have an opportunity to win.
The Orange Zone, sponsored by Billy Whitaker Cars and Trucks.
What's up? What's up? Welcome into the Orange Zone podcast, the award-winning Orange Zone podcast, presented by Billy Whitaker Cars and Trucks. Shout out our boy Billy. A reminder, you can find every episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, I don't care, wherever you want to listen. You can also find every episode on our Orange Zone YouTube page. New episodes are released Wednesdays. We invite you to like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to follow. We're on the gram. We have TikTok.
I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
It's going on and on. And we have an awesome group today for this week's show. We have Brendan Hodges as normal and the producer Mike. We have Samantha Croston. James Mongro's sick, and we are bringing in a guy that he could have done basketball or football coming out of high school. He ended up choosing basketball, but this man knows ball on the gridiron. It's Lawrence Poetry in Moton. It's SU's all-time leading scorer. He was a Vancouver Grizzly for the Florida State listeners coming in. We have the man of the hour here. And Poetry, happy to have you back on, man. What have you been up to?
Thanks for having me, Tommy and Sam. Glad to be back. Just been relaxing for the summer, back with the kids in the school system, dealing with that. I got my degree in childhood education. So
congratulations, my man.
I enjoy teaching middle school kids. It's a transition period for those guys and girls, and I enjoy it.
You still at Clary?
Yes, I am.
Shout out Clary Middle, man.
Clary
you make a
Middle
big
School.
impact, and they're very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Sam, how you feeling? Football or not football related?
No, listen, football or not football, I'm feeling good. But I do have to say on that note, Moton, that I really could see you being a phenomenal teacher. Like, that seems like the perfect career path for you.
Thank
and
you.
I want to ask, what is one lesson that you try to give to your kids?
Well, that's funny you say that because I'm not officially a teacher. I'm what you call a mentor and specialist or a support coach. So basically, if the kids are, off track or out of control, I'm here to make sure to get them back on track. And I'm here to also make sure the teachers are teaching the right way, because there's a lot of false teaching out here.
Very cool. Very exciting.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
And this episode, we're going to be getting all into Syracuse and Florida State. We're going to be doing a bit of a recap on let's put it simple. It was a beatdown, and Syracuse's lost to UNC this past weekend. We get into our game picks predictions. We have a little bit of trivia, which Poetry is already smiling at. He's the man. He's the king of poet. He's a king of trivia. So
You said it, I didn't.
yeah, we're getting into all of it. Brendan's already back there shaking. He's got the shakes all morning. He isn't even drinking coffee. So let's get right into it. So Syracuse coming off a 40-7 loss to UNC. And guess what? When you're talking about a get-right game, I mean, end of the day, the next game always has to be a get-right game. But this one is against the number 4 team in the country. This one's against a very good Seminole team. How are you guys ultimately feeling right now with the Syracuse team at 4-2 and after what you just watched on Saturday?
I'm feeling like I'm not even sure if you can call it that a get-right game, because I don't know
That's what
exactly.
I mean. I don't even know if that's the right term.
I don't know exactly what's going to happen or what's going to get got, but I do think that, again, with every game, I always do feel this way, that you either have success or experience. I think that this will be a game where they do gain some kind of experience. But what I would love to see in a game against Florida State, we understand how great of a team this is, and that's something that we're going to get into. We also understand the fact that they are playing at Florida State, and that's going to be a challenge as well. But I would love to see them just compete a little bit more than we've seen the past 2 games. I definitely thought they could have played better against Clemson. I think UNC was a better team, period. But I still would just like to see some of the mistakes that we've seen be cleaned up. I would love to see some more offensive production. And just give it your all. I feel like in a game against Florida State, the way I look at it, my mentality would be, what do you have to lose? Really? What a great opportunity to go out there and in that small chance that you do win, I mean, wow, it changes the course of the entire season.
Poetry, how you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling that I've watched the last couple of weeks. I'm a diehard Syracuse football guy also, and I've watched the past couple of weeks, and the thing that has been lacking has been energy and effort. It looks like we're actually scared to play against ranked teams and teams that we feel that are better than us. I don't see our energy at all, and to me, that all starts from the coach. You are the style of your coach. If you have a fiery coach, you're going to have a fiery team. So, Bavers, I'm not liking what I'm seeing. The guys are not giving me any confidence of wanting to compete. Like Sam said, it's all about competing and taking that challenge on, and I really don't see it. And I'm really tired of seeing not good football when it comes to playing good teams.
And it's interesting you say that, because some of the stuff that went wrong in Clemson, right? That feeling of just some of the guys not being ready, some of the leaders, the veterans making silly mistakes, some of that carried over. And it's the last thing you wanted, was to have a little bit of that same feel, and it still just felt like some of them weren't ready to go.
I do think that's true. And I mean, again, when you talk about the game against UNC, who showed up, who didn't, I was able to get to talk to Damian Alford today. I think these guys know. One thing I will say about most of the players on this team is that when they didn't have a great game, they take accountability for it, and they know. They come ready to the press conference understanding, this is what I could have done better. I know that you guys want to see more from me. And when we talked to Damian Alford today, just kind of asking him, he had that breakout game against Army. He's been relatively silent since that point.
One catch in the last 2 games.
One
and that's
catch
a guy,
for 35 yards, and that's it.
with Gadsden down, you expect to be starting to fill that role, and we haven't seen it right now.
Not right now, and not over the course of the last 2 games, which I think, you had that game against Army, and people thought, wow, what could be here? And the guy just has every time I see him, I just feel like he has this massive frame. I can't believe how big and tall he is and whatnot. And for him, he actually said, as far as this week in practice, he's going to be dialing in more mentally. I think to him, there's a mental part of it here, because that makes sense to me. He understands and he knows what his ceiling is. We've seen that his potential is higher, and right now it is possible that there could just be a mental block. And that's why, like, with the get right phrasing, it's like, man, you're going to have to prove yourself on a big stage here with a team that is not only very good, but makes very few mistakes.
I think it would be impossible to ignore that we're feeling the impact of not having Rondé Gadsden in there. We're feeling the impact of not having Trevor Pena and even Isaiah Jones, who we saw the first few games. And, ultimately, Gadsden went down at the very beginning of that Western Michigan game, and I don't know if you guys remember it, Isaiah Jones had that acrobatic catch over the middle. So there was definitely some comfortability there. And, Garrett Schrader, I thought he was pretty honest in the postgame of UNC, where he's like, you're dealing with the cards you're dealt with. And to me, it almost feels like having to create some of these new connections with guys that he just hadn't really built upon because of how many injuries happened. So I think a guy like Jones to come back wouldn't only help Schrader have that comfortability again, but it would help the other side of the field to have Damian Alford maybe get some more room. Because I know it's there, right?
Yeah. And I think, from watching the game, Schrader's been in college for 5 or 6 years now. You have to be smarter. And it's just, the decision-making that he makes at times just makes you scratch your head and wonder, why is he doing that? Of course, Syracuse football revolves around Schrader. That's what I see personally. If he's having a bad game, the team is going to have a bad game personally.
I think that's accurate to say that. And ultimately, a guy that is so strong in RPO, right? The run game just hasn't really been there for him.
Yes.
And when that's not clicking, you're right. It hurts. But the other coaches also know, like even Mike Norvell, I was listening to his press conference this week, Florida State coach. He's like, he's a very good quarterback, and it's because of that, balance between his arms and his legs. Mm-hmm. And so they go in knowing that they need to shut that down. And I think other teams are very much finding success when they're able to contain him on the ground. It is very, very effective in stopping this offense. And period.
It is. And you mentioned that he was honest in the post-game press conference. I felt that honesty continued into today.
Yeah, what did he say to you?
We got to speak to him again today, and actually he said something sort of similar to what Dino had said. And just to remind people, on Monday, Dino Babers, that press conference, Tommy, you were at it, And when he was asked about that injury conversation, it did come up. He said, it's the same old thing. Our depth is gone. Our depth is in the transfer portal. You know how many guys get lost. You know what schools they play at. Schools like us, we're not going to have a lot of depth because it gets bought away. Garrett Schrader, in a sense today, doubles down on that, saying, I have seen this story before. I've seen that some guys are out and then you have to build a relationship with some other people. And honestly, Moten, that's where I would love to bring you in to ask, how do you overcome a challenge like that when there are different people who are rotating out in any sport? And how difficult is that to rebuild chemistry throughout the season with different guys?
Yeah. Well, I was always taught next man up. You know, you have to be ready at all times and do what you do best and do what you can do to help the team be successful. You know, I did say that the team revolves around Schrader, but there's other players also. Schrader doesn't play defense, and North Carolina scored 40 points on us. So, you know, I mean, you just have to be mentally ready. Like you said earlier, Sam, I feel the sports, especially physical sports, 90% of it is mental. And if you are not mentally strong, you will get taken advantage of. The other 10% is the physical part, but 90% of the game is a mental game. And if you understand that, and you're always mentally ready and mentally prepared and mentally doing your background homework on studying the offense or the defense that you have to prepare for, I think you'll be ready. So this portal thing, it is here now. I don't want to use that as an excuse now because we have the portal and players are coming in and out. It's like this. You have to deal with it.
Bouncing off that poetry, going back to what Babers was saying about the depth, and that was a big point of conversation yesterday on social media where people saying, being like, this is very true given Syracuse's geographic location. It's not exactly it's not exactly a gold mine for getting the guys from Florida, Texas, California, you name it. But when he says it's getting bought away and that's never going to change, do you think that Syracuse through an NIL collective could end up competing and being one of the higher paying institutions in the conference, or is that not something that you can envision here in the next 5 years? I don't know if I want to give you a time frame on that or not.
It's hard to vision that right now, because back to your coach, it's all about styles and motivation. I look at Deion Sanders in Colorado, and he has a great personality, great style, and he's a great motivator. So other guys that are in different colleges, they're looking at that. So they're going to want to come to play for Deion, So if you can run through a brick wall for your head coach and just want to play well for him, that takes your team to another level. And it also goes along with the economic side of it as far as does our university want to pay to have a good coach? Mm-hmm. You have to pay to play. And not saying that Babers is not a good coach, but there are, you look at Alabama and Florida State and North Carolina and all these other colleges who have top-notch coaches, and they're paying them that bread, giving them that money. So, that's what I'm all about. But it's all about your coach and having that motivation and how he or she, when it comes to coaching, can lead you in the right direction to be successful.
Well, here's a segue, because one of the highest-paying NIL collectives from reportedly what we've seen is FSU is up there. Mm-hmm. FSU is absolutely up there when it comes to getting the guys to commit because of what they're going to be offering outside of football. And again, Florida State, they get dogs. Mm-hmm. A perfect example, and Dino Babers actually tied FSU almost into his point where you look at what NIL can do, because he says you look at this team a few years ago and to where they are now, since that's gone down and all happened in 2021, it's a difference here. Brendan has it written down. 2020, 2021, overall record was 3-6. You go to the next year, 5-7. Last year, 10-3, finishing 11th in the AP poll, and this year 5-0, fourth in the AP. I'm gonna bring super producer Hodges in. He did a lot of notes on this team. You and I, we converged. We've been looking into Reddit pages, Twitter. We love the Florida State fan base because they are so unbelievably invested. So we wanted to figure out what they're thinking, what you're thinking, bring us in. What do you got on the Seminoles?
They are very into Miami football, I'll tell you that, after that blunder from this past weekend.
Oh, man. Did we all see that, just for context?
That
radio?
was take a knee, man.
Brandon, give some background on that
So
for someone that didn't know.
Miami is up 3 on, was it Georgia Tech?
Georgia
Yes,
Tech.
Georgia Tech.
And Georgia Tech has no timeouts with a minute left in the game. And it's like second down, so you take 2 knees, you're done. Like, game's over. Miami goes home with a win to remain undefeated. They run the ball, which, like, in happenstance isn't the worst thing you can do, right? Because it's like the second best thing you can do, as long as you don't fumble, which your running back does. They turn the ball over. Georgia Tech drives down and scores a touchdown with, I think, literally 1 second left on the clock. Miami loses in the what's being called the worst coaching decision in college football history.
Oh, man.
Awful.
Not to mention it was at Miami. And also, maybe this shows just the way that the sports world is changing a little. But do you want to know, the first time I saw that, all I could think about in my head was the people who bet on Miami. Like, imagine that feeling, how defeating that must have been,
Yeah.
losing money in that
It
way.
changes up now.
You know what it reminded me of? Bringing it back to Syracuse, was Rex Culpepper spiking a ball on 4th down a couple of years ago to lose against
Oh,
Louisville.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
one
that's
of
a very
and
that's
that's
a
not
niche.
and that's not a coaching thing that happened. That was him in the heat of the moment thinking I got to spike this ball to stop the clock and not realizing it's 4th down. This was just like the players got to be thinking, Coach, there's a minute left. They have no timeouts. Why aren't we taking it? Even if it's a shotgun knee. Like, no one takes a knee under center in college football, but just get in the shotgun, take the snap, and drop to a knee, and the game's over.
I mean, even the announcer could not believe it. I just don't know what's going on here. Why is he doing that? Like, and you know what? I really, like, that's one of those things where, like, my heart just sinks for them because
Yeah.
this is a team that's undefeated up until that point. That one play is going to change the entire rest of the season, really, for them, you know?
You know why I don't feel sorry for them?
Why not,
Because they
Brendan?
were dumb enough to do it.
I mean,
And I
get
think
that.
that's what Florida State fans were getting across on their Reddit pages. There wasn't a lot of talk about some of the bigger name players, though. Your Jordan Travises, your Trey Bensons on the offensive side. I mean, there was some, but not like too many because everyone knows those names, and they're trying to be like in the weeds analysts, like every fan wants to be. And in doing so, a lot of the comments were directed at more of the defensive side of the team. For some reason, like, they just hate their defensive coordinator and think he's awful because they give up points to teams that are, in their eyes, beneath them. Mm-hmm. And then I think I have a stat here if someone wants to take credit for it here. If not, I'll just read it.
Go ahead.
In 25 drives that the first team Florida State defense has been on the field this year, they've given up 3 scores. They have themselves scored twice and gotten off the field every other time. That's 88% of the time they're either scoring themselves on defense or not giving up any points. And like a minority of the fans, I'll say, want to run this guy out of town, and it's like,
And it's Adam
why?
Fuller, by the way. Give some context.
yeah, it's like why? The defense is pitching shutouts in the second half for the most part.
Well, this is where we open it up to you, FSU Twitter,
Yes.
FSU Reddit.
FSU YouTube.
If you are team fire Adam Fuller or just have full frustration with him, drop the comment below.
We
We'll
know
be
you.
checking
We
in.
know
I'll be
you.
having Brendan check in personally.
We know you watch
to
it.
respond to you.
We know you watch it because you commented on this episode last season.
And that's why we that's why we love FSU.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
And
We
I
really
will
appreciate
also
this
say
fan base.
they love their secondary. There are a couple of really experienced guys. Cypress Fennel, I think his name is, right? I'm missing that. Fentrell Cypress II.
I was
Sorry.
gonna say I feel like I was flip flopped.
Yeah, Fentrell Cypress II. They're like, oh, we thought he was going to be the lockdown corner. He's good, but this other guy, Renardo Green, has been playing more consistent. And then they're really high on a freshman, Conrad Hussey, who I think had a pretty big hit in their last game against Virginia Tech.
But before, and I'm happy we're getting into the weeds, but just from watching last week, he was the highest graded guy on PFF. Trey Benson is a big-time running back for them. And sometimes it gets a little bit overshadowed from the national perspective because you have a guy like Jordan Travis that's also one of the best in the country. So this is a team where, and Dino Babers talks about it, you got to figure out what you're going to do with these teams. Are you going to be stopping the pass or are you going to be stopping the run? And I like to think that given the nature of Syracuse's secondary, right? Mm-hmm. And the dogs that are back there and the somewhat of chaos that they've caused in games past, that you almost want to test the luck with that. Because I think the run game is the thing you need to stop first, especially because you have Jordan Travis as a mobile quarterback. With that being said, one of the things that Florida State, from what I was reading, is pass protection not always there. Syracuse's D gets some sacks. Mm-hmm. Mike Norvell said it in his presser. He's like, they will blitz you every which way. Almost about every single guy on that field will find his way to the quarterback. We've seen Justin Barron. That man's a rover way back there. He will come up from time to time. So he's like, they're going to throw stuff at him. And that to me, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but that's one of my real big keys to the game is if they can disrupt Jordan Travis. Because let me tell you something, they did not disrupt Drake May in any sense. There was no disruption. That man was just he was
having a field day.
He was having a field day.
They
We
made
call it
him look
Olympic
like
day
Justin
for me.
Herbert. They made him look like Justin Herbert. I watched the game. And
That's
it was
my
like
comp, by the way.
Yeah.
Watching Justin Herbert out there, very calm and collective, and just making things look
It was calm, wasn't it?
so easy. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But that's back to what I said, Tom. With energy and effort. You know, it was like we were just out there just to be out there instead of playing with fire, and that was a bad call about the block punt.
Horrific.
That
Something to say about that.
But I don't want to use that as an excuse. You still
I
have
agree.
a lot of more football to play. A lot of football was left, and to try to use that as an excuse, I don't buy that.
Can I pose a question to the group here?
Yes.
I put this in a web article I posted earlier today. It's Tuesday right now. If I had told you before the season, looking at the schedule, Syracuse is going to be 4-2 through 6 weeks, what would your reaction be?
My reaction would be that's right on cue with what I thought.
Yes.
Pretty good.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I know,
Yeah.
when we
Absolutely.
made predictions at the beginning of the season, like even I said I would expect Syracuse to win one of a stretch of 3 games, whether it was Clemson, North Carolina, Florida State, because I thought that they would, having gone through the doldrums of conference play last year, set themselves up to be more competitive in that. They kind of were against Clemson. Mistakes really got away from them in that game. They weren't against North Carolina at all. And no matter what it was, I don't think after watching at least a few minutes of that game, which is all I was able to because I was calling a game elsewhere later that day, it was just like, yeah, I don't think there was any chance they were going to win this game walking into the stadium. And I'm probably tipping my hands here. I don't think there's really any shot that they win this one this weekend either. I mean, there always is, but it's the best team in the conference, and you just got ran through by North Carolina. I would expect not completely the same thing, but at least some of the same from Florida State.
Well, if you ask me, I really thought, the game that was winnable for them was Clemson.
100%.
Agree.
Was the Clemson game.
Totally agree.
Homecoming, coming out, I mean, just fire and to start off the way we did and to play the way we did at home. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
You take away those turnovers and it's a game.
Yes, you do.
You take away just those 2 in the beginning.
And it was anyone's
but
game.
what happened
But it
happened.
starts at the beginning.
what happened
You got to
happened.
be ready at the beginning.
And the slow starts. The slow starts are, we were complaining about the slow starts. It started to become ugly starts.
Yes.
And granted, that whole play in the UNC game with the punt, was that a first down? Absolutely not. Did that alter the total vibe and momentum of the first quarter? Absolutely. It's kind of that what could have been. Did everything else that still happen, would that still have happened? Probably, based on what we saw. So keep that in mind.
I don't
but
know
guess
if
what?
all of it would have still happened. I
yeah.
really felt like if that call was different, it might have been a little more competitive, at least for a little while.
100%.
Maybe for the first
Absolutely.
quarter or a bit of the
Maybe.
second
But
quarter.
is it
Were they going to
enough-
win
was
that
it
game?
enough to win the game?
No.
Then I
And
think
it was different. Let's go back to a year ago, or was it 2 years ago, with the roughing the passer on Clemson.
Oh, that was
a
last year.
winnable game.
Yeah.
Now I thought was a winnable game, but that 15-yard penalty changed the whole trajectory of the game, and it went all downhill.
That
from
feels like a different story.
Yes.
Guess what? We're not the only ones on a podcast this week being, covering Syracuse, talking about the ACC officiating.
Isn't Florida State doing that too?
Florida State is doing the same thing.
Those Reddit pages
Clemson-
call it AC reffing or something like that.
Clemson is doing the same thing. It's this energy right now. It seems to be conference wide. Like they said, Mike Norvell they've never seen him so animated on the sideline. That was about some of the more animated I've seen Dino Babers while that was going on, and his clear frustration with that. So keep that in mind. For what it's worth, this seems to be somewhat conference-wide, and people finding some frustration in it.
And I want animation in general, not just because of a call.
So you want it from you want him more.
Show me more personality and more fire. I'm tired of the somber, just same old look. I'm tired of it. That's just me. I'm all about personality. I'm all about fire, and I don't have a problem with giving you that once in a while, but it's the same old thing, and we've been dealing with it like for about going on 6 or 7 years now.
I think what I will say on that is I think part of the reason why Dino Babers always sort of keeps his calm demeanor in part is because he really just is a stand-up guy, and he doesn't want to let some things get to him. He doesn't want to let the team see him get heated. At the same time, I really feel like some of the coaches or managers or whoever across all sports that I've really liked are people who sometimes get heated and fight for their team. And I feel like Buck Showalter is a perfect example of that.
Right.
He just got fired. But the point is, I really like the fact that sometimes he would be out there in the ump's face, like, you made a bad call, and the whole crowd is cheering because you appreciate the fact that you can see that anger is actually, it's sort of like masking the love that you actually feel for your team. So I understand where you're coming from with that.
And you don't understand what that would do to the player. See, when the player sees your coach fighting for you, he or she in the sport wants to give it more of their all for you as a coach, but the little chill style I'm not cool with. And you're a military guy, right? Am I right? Isn't Babers a military guy?
Yeah, grew up on the
What
bases.
are we talking about?
And you know what? Practice, I will say this. Practice, he can let it rip.
Okay.
He's done it in front of us. He's got the fire.
That
in him.
makes it even worse.
And so you want it to be across the
tell
board.
me he does that in practice, that makes it even worse to me, because now it's like you're on TV live and now you're scared to be you.
SU fans, let us know what you think. What do you think of his calm demeanor on the sideline? Is that something you like? Is that something that gets under your skin like it does with poetry? Let us know. But to get a little bit more into FSU, before we do our game picks and then finally trivia, Ashley Wenskowski, as we're doing weekly now, which has been a lot of fun, sitting down with the play-by-play, the voice of the Seminoles. We're sending it out to her right now.
I'm Ashley Wenskowski here with the voice of the Seminoles, Jeff Culhane. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us.
Ashley, great to talk to you, and thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Talking some Syracuse, Florida State football this weekend. It's a noon kickoff down at Florida State. Jeff, just walk me through your takeaways from this team. Obviously, you guys are ranked 4th in the nation, one of the best teams in college football, and certainly one of the best in the ACC. So give me a little in-depth look into the Seminoles this season.
Yeah, Ashley, I think it's, as Mike Norvell has made it, as that year number 4 right now with this Florida State football program, his slogan is climb. And this is a program that has gone through some difficulties over the last 6, 7, 8 years or so, and certainly went through some adversity in coach's first couple of years here at FSU. And the message has remained the same. It's remained consistent. And after, an 0-4 start to begin 2021, this team stuck together. They fought through some tough times. They did not get to bowl eligibility after that season. But from there, this group really turned a corner. And the roster that Mike Norvell and this coaching staff have put together, he always talks about finding the biggest, fastest, best fit for Florida State University. And so, in an era in college athletics where you have the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness, Mike Norvell and this staff have done a phenomenal job in finding the best talent that is also the right fit for what he is building culturally here at Florida State. And, I think all of us that have worked around sports and have been around successful programs would agree that the best teams are the ones that are player led and essentially monitor in the locker room. With that type of a mindset. And so this is certainly starts at the top with Mike Norvell, but the way this culture has been instilled at FSU It's a group that's player led. There's a lot of returning talent that came back that could have gone to the NFL, but they wanted to come back and do something special and do it together and do it for the fans and everybody here at Florida State University. So they've gotten off to a tremendous start. By no means have they played their best football game yet. In fact, our heart rates have been elevated at times throughout this season. So it's a group that's gotten off to a great start, but still has room to improve.
And I think that culture you described is something that, a lot of other teams around the ACC, including Syracuse, really admire and look to emulate in this era of conference realignment and NIL, as you mentioned. Is there anything that's really surprised you off the bat about the Seminoles this season?
No, I would say surprised. I think what's been impressive is this group has responded to adversity in a big way. And I think all of us would love to see perfect execution and stress-free games on Saturdays, but that's not how it works in college football and college athletics and sports in general. This team has responded. They have been challenged. They have been pushed. They played a difficult schedule. They played LSU to start the year and were trailing at halftime and dominated in the second half, probably with some own self-inflicted mistakes. They had to fight off Boston College in week number 3, but they responded and answered. Going to Clemson and playing a Clemson team that I know a lot of people might not be as high on because they lost to Duke and or whatever you want to call it. This is still a Clemson team with a lot of NFL talent and a lot of guys that have won a ton of games, and they'd only lost twice in Death Valley dating back to 2014 by 1 point in each of those games. They responded there and found a way to win on the road at overtime. And then this last week against Virginia Tech, Brett Pry is building something within his program in Blacksburg and trying to instill his culture, and they're getting better. And so after a great start where it was a dominant first quarter, Virginia Tech responded. Florida State kind of slammed the door shut after a big play to start the second half with a kickoff return by Bashal Tootin. So they've responded. They've answered the call. And so even though you haven't seen this team outside of the Southern Miss game completely, put teams away or dominate for 4 quarters, when they've been pushed, they push back in a big way.
Well, and that's kind of the beauty of the ACC this year, right? There's 3 undefeated teams left, obviously Florida State among them, UNC and Louisville the others. And then even when you get beyond that, you have some other very good teams in your Dukes, your Clemsons. Where do you rank Florida State among those teams in the ACC?
Well, I think Florida State's at the top right now, and I've been very impressed by Louisville. I think what Jeff Brom is doing is just another example of, hey, you come in, you want to instill who you are, and you can flip the roster in a hurry in the portal, and he did that with a lot of new guys, and now here they are unbeaten and just ended Notre Dame's 30-game winning streak versus ACC opponents on Saturday night at Cardinal Stadium. And you look at their schedule, if they can win their next 2 games, they have a decent chance of being unbeaten going to Miami on November 18th. And so Louisville's been impressive. Obviously, Cuse fans just saw North Carolina and what they're capable of when Drake May can get it going, and he's a dangerous player. Mac Brown is one heck of a coach and has surrounded himself with great coaches on that staff. And their big question mark was defense last year, and they really challenged that group, and it looks like they've gotten better and are playing faster and more physical. So I think Florida State is the best team in the league right now. It's a league that is much better than I think what people were expecting it to be nationally prior to this season starting. We've seen what Duke is capable of. That's a big game next weekend here in Tallahassee. Obviously, Clemson is Clemson, and I think they're going to have a say in how things go. And outside of just the bizarre ending late Saturday night where Miami literally kicked one away, fumbled one away to Georgia Tech, they've been better this year also. So it's a fun league. It's fun to follow. And there's a lot of really, really good teams that want to have a say in this thing before it's all said and done.
Moving into this week's matchup against Syracuse a little bit more, Florida State had their bye week in week 5. Syracuse is still waiting on theirs. It's a tired Syracuse team, not to sugarcoat it. They are beaten up UNC last week. What is your opinion on that? Do you think having the bye week earlier in the season does help refresh players, or what's your opinion on where the bye week is scheduled?
I think for Florida State, it came at the perfect time. I mean, week 4 in September, Ashley, we were on the road every weekend but one. And our one home game was a quick turnaround 6 days after the LSU game, less than 6 days. I thought it came at the perfect time. There were some injuries. Usually you get through 4 games, depending on how the schedule is made. That's usually your non-conference kind of window for the most part. For Florida State, there were 2 league games mixed in there with how the Noles schedule. And so if you look at the timetable when camp starts and you take a look at how the season kind of calendars together, if you will, that was really the midway point after week 4 for FSU after game 4 for Florida State. It came right in the middle of that calendar stretch. So perfect timing. And I think in watching Syracuse, you're right. They've suffered some really big injuries, unfortunately. They've lost some key pieces and very good players. But you really, it's hard to control some of that stuff with the conference slate. I remember actually looking at this game back in the summer and seeing this stretch that Syracuse is in right now, and just thinking, man, that's going to be difficult. With Clemson at North Carolina, at Florida State, then you get your bye. Oh, by the way, then you got to go play in Blacksburg on a Thursday night against the Virginia Tech team that's getting better and one of the toughest places to play in the league. So, definitely the right time for FSU. And I'm sure Syracuse and everybody around the Cuse program, fans, everybody saying, we knew this would be a tough stretch as we're in the middle of it right now. And certainly it's one that is very challenging across the board. There's no doubt.
Now, kind of building off of that, what are your keys to the game? Obviously, FSU heavily favored against Syracuse, but regardless, what are the keys for the Seminoles to come out and beat the Orange?
I think a fast start's pretty big. Like we talked about, Syracuse is a team right now that's looking to find themselves and get back to their winning ways, starting the season 4-0. They've fallen behind early against Clemson, obviously, fell behind early and tried to kind of dig their way out of a hole against North Carolina last weekend, and that's tough to do on the road against a very good team. Going to be a sold-out crowd. It was just announced earlier on Monday afternoon that 79,560 doing the war chant here inside of Doak Campbell Stadium. It's going to be an electric atmosphere with an earlier kick at noon Eastern time. I think a fast start is big. You don't want to allow a Syracuse team that has had some recent defeats to gain confidence and get back into it. And Schrader's the kind of guy that if you let him hang around, he can win a close game late. He's got that kind of magic with what he's done and come from behind wins and game-winning plays late in contests. He's got that kind of it factor overall. Making sure he doesn't hurt you, extending the play is very important. And I think it's a huge game, Ashley, for the Florida State offensive line. They did a nice job bouncing back after a tough day against Clemson, where they were able to pop some big runs with Trey Benson with a 65-yarder or 62-yarder and an 85-yarder, for the longest play of the year this season for Florida State football. Against Rocky Long's 3-3-5 look, a guy that has, he has forgotten more football than any of us know. I think that's an interesting matchup with how he moves pieces around and tries to pressure Jordan Travis. One thing Syracuse defense does so well, they get to the quarterback and they force turnovers. And so that's a big part of it. If you can get to the QB and take the ball away, that's going to give Garrett Schrader and the Orange offense some more opportunities.
I was just going to bring up the Rocky Long defense, but you beat me to it. And I'm glad that you did. Last question for you here. Just in terms of Florida State being around this football team all year and this obviously great winning culture you brought up at the beginning, what's your favorite part been of just being around this team?
The whole setting around Florida State football is special, and Florida State athletics. And the leadership at FSU right now is as aligned as they ever have been with support of athletics, with Dr. Richard McCullough, the president, Michael Alford, who's just a phenomenal director of athletics and vice president here at FSU, and the support from boosters with Stephen Ponder, the president and CEO of Seminole Boosters, has made you see this vision and where this is going for Florida State athletics, and there's a lot of excitement around everything going on in the Noles right now. And so for me with this football program, it's how they go about their business. It's the way they prepare on a day-to-day basis. How even little things, how they treat people around the practice field, and they understand their impact on the community. And sometimes maybe that doesn't have as much of an understanding, depending on where you're at. This is a group that understands that this is very, very important to a lot of people, and they want to leave a legacy. They want to write a new chapter in the story of what Florida State football has been and, has the chance to be here this season. They want to be one of those great teams that people remember and talk about for a long, long time. And so, as we mentioned and started this thing off, the way Mike Norvell has built this thing with the blueprint and what he has created here, you have a feeling and a hope that we're going to be able to say a lot of great things about this team for years to come. But a lot of football left to be played. Anything certainly can happen, and got a tough opponent in Syracuse coming to town on Saturday.
All right, Ashley Witzkowski, great interview there with Jeff. Love hearing from the voice of the other team. It really is a look behind enemy lines, so to speak, and it's a great perspective. So, final thoughts on FSU Syracuse, game prediction-wise. Who wants to kick it off? Sam, do you want to do it? I will say, is it Florida State favored 17.5, I'm guessing?
Yes,
Yep.
it is. Scratch
Okay.
that little. If you want the method behind the madness here, we use Google Drive for all our notes, and so I go back and I take the various titles and stuff and rework them as I go through it each day. So that is a stray North Carolina there.
Okay. 17.5. Man, that is fat.
I think probably should be bigger.
I will say last week, just to let everyone know, we had Ashley on, and we were right all around in terms of we were right all around with the game pick. So I go to 5-1, Sam 4-1. Against the spread, I'm doing pretty bad. I'm 2-3 now. The spread was around 9, and I said it was going to be 28-24, so I eat that one. I take it on the chin, and we move on. Are you ready to start us off with your game prediction?
I am.
Hit us with it.
I think that Florida State is going to win this game by more than 17.5 points.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I think that for a lot of reasons, but another stat here that we didn't hit on yet, and this is part of my prediction, is Jordan Travis. It's almost like we talked about so many people that I feel like we didn't talk about him enough and how much of a dog he really is. Third-year starter. He's completing over 63% of his passes for nearly 1,200 yards, and this is the most important part, with a 12-1 touchdown to interception ratio. That interception
Really
has
good.
been his only turnover of the season. Really, really good. And like I said, just a team that I feel like truly does not make that many mistakes. I'm going to go 42-14 on this one. 42-14. And even 14, I actually think I could totally see some Florida State fans saying that Syracuse is not going to put up 14 points against Florida State. But I feel like they have a little more fire this week. I feel like they're a little more hungry, and I feel like they will have that mentality of there is nothing to lose against a team that is this good. And sometimes when you're in that position as a team and you don't have any pressure on you, it's actually kind of a nice, fun place to be, and you're playing looser, and you're playing like you have nothing to lose. So I could see them putting up 14 points, but I think this is still going to be we might see more from Syracuse than we've seen in previous games. I still think that FSU is likely going to spank them to a certain degree, simply because they are a much better team. They're a really high caliber team.
Yeah.
How about you, Poetry?
Yeah, I think Florida State is definitely the better team. I'm not a numbers guy when it comes to point spreads and everything. I'm just straight wins or losses.
Go with your feeling.
Florida State's going to win, and it's going to be 38-17.
38-17.
Okay.
Dang, that's pretty good. I like the sound of that a lot. I'm going to go a little bit lower with it. My thoughts on this, in the beginning of the season, it was I'm riding Syracuse till they prove me wrong. They proved me wrong. And now I'm going against them until they prove me right, because I was really, really expecting and hoping for a better response, some anger that I'm sure was still there after the loss to Clemson, and it didn't happen against UNC. And I was really bothered by that. So I'm going with Florida State again until Syracuse proves me otherwise. I think, and I have to believe, that the offense just does a little bit more in this one. And I absolutely think they will, whether it's through Jason Beck, Garrett Schrader, is Isaiah Jones back? Is Damian Alford back to what we saw against Army? I think we're going to see some better flashes, but ultimately I'm still going with Florida State in this one, and that's going to be 34-17, which would mean Syracuse.
So you think they'll cover?
Covers the spread by half.
Tommy,
a
this
point.
is why you don't do well against the
I
spread.
know.
Man.
No, I didn't
This is
see.
why
listen,
Sam is on her way to her second
Honestly.
win. Her
Listen.
second win.
Honestly,
I came up with this score before I saw the spread, before I saw the over-under. So take it for what you will, or take it, listen, I need to make some ground in the against the spread category, and this is how I'm going to do it. So,
And they're going to play harder. They're going to play harder, I think.
they are. And granted, Doak Campbell's a crazy place to play. I would love to see a game down there.
awesome goalpost.
Love the Seminole coming out in the beginning, doing doing the spike in midfield. 2 years ago, Syracuse should have won there. Remember the field goal?
I do.
There was actually a crazy play, probably a hold on, I believe, Michael Jones. Jordan Travis ran for a crazy third down call. Correct me if I'm wrong with that one. But again, Dino Babers and his staff knows how to get these guys ready to go into that environment. So I think it's going to be better. I just think this team's a wagon for a reason. So, trivia before we get out of here.
Trivia today. I'm not quaking in my boots, as Mr. Sladek said.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
It's a new year, buddy. Going into the new year.
I will say I am still working on getting the prizes. I'm literally looking everywhere for like little crowns that I can put a title
We have
on.
a spin wheel here in this
We do
warehouse.
have a spin wheel here. I just but we're not doing a wheel of punishment here.
People can't see it, but just to let you know, I know you're only seeing the studio, but to give you an idea of the environment we're in, if you've ever seen The Office, right? We look like we're in the warehouse at Dunder Mifflin.
That is really good. Anyway, trivia today. Excluding this coming weekend, how many times has Syracuse played a top 4 ranked Florida State team in the college football playoff era? As we all know, 4 teams get into the playoff. This is the last year I think that's the case, right? 12 teams in 2024?
Yeah, so pumped for that, by the way. So walk me through that again. Hit me with it.
Excluding this coming weekend, how many times has Syracuse football played a top 4 ranked Florida State team in the college football playoff era?
And college football playoffs started when?
In 2014.
Okay.
So Florida State had to be in the top 4 then. How many times have they been top 4 since 2014?
Are you asking me?
No, is that the question?
No,
Yeah. How many times has SU played Florida State while they were a top 4 team over the course of the college football playoff era?
Got it. So not just in general, but the times that they've been ranked in the top 4.
Yes.
Okay, since 2014. So that would be 10 seasons.
I think this is a trick question. I really do. I really
Oh
do.
no.
He's already on him. He didn't even hesitate.
Wait, let's just let him lock it in. Imagine it's just his first guess and we could just call
I
it
think
a
this
day.
is a trick question, my guy. I really do.
And what do you think?
What's your
I
number?
think this will be the first time.
Brandon?
You guys know how I work. You have to give me an answer too.
No.
Okay, fine.
I say lock
fine.
it in.
See, I know last year they were not. Last year they whooped
I
Syracuse.
like that
It was
out of the
38-3, but they were not top 4. No way. I think they were maybe top
I don't
25.
even remember them being top
2
four.
years ago, they were. I think they had a bad start to the season, and so it was not 2 years ago. Oh man, I'm trying to think. I mean, like the last time I feel like they were really up there, it was Jameis, right? And Jameis has been out of college for a minute now. Just to switch it up, I'm going to go with 1.
That's a good one. That's a good one, too.
I'm going to ride with Moten because I
Okay.
just feel like he probably has the answer. I don't know. I don't want to bet against him.
You're such a bandwagoner, Sam. And you're wrong.
Oh.
Finally! I went against Moten. I didn't win against Tommy, though. Tommy's right. They did play them one time.
All right.
2014. I think Jameis was still there that year. That was the first year of the playoff.
Yeah.
That would make a lot more sense because I was like, okay, I really don't think they've been up there since the Jameis time, and I was thinking he left like 2012, but I guess I'm wrong.
No, that would
feels
have been
good.
his freshman year, I think.
As for my speech, I'd like to thank the Academy.
That's enough from
my
you.
folks, my neighbors for believing
He is
in
on
me.
a streak. He's on a streak.
Yeah, you've been on a heater.
I have been.
Good job,
I've been
man.
feeling real good.
Good job.
We
Appreciate
missed
you.
ya.
I appreciate you guys.
Excited to have you back again soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be back. Basketball season around the corner. We have Media Day on Friday with Adrian Red Autry. It's a new era.
Yeah,
FLJ is
yeah,
back
yeah.
for year 2. This man's feeling good.
I feel good about this. I really do, Adrian. I'm excited for Adrian. He's a great guy, and honestly, I've been going to the practices. We have a very exciting athletic team, and he has all the pieces. This is when we're going to really see if he can coach because we have the pieces.
Here we go, folks.
It's all coming up
Yep.
on the Orange Zone podcast soon.
Yep.
Brendan Hodges, Samantha Croston, Lawrence Moten, Tommy Sladak. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We're out of here till next week. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace. Thank you, Billy Whitaker, Carson Trucks. We're out.
See ya.
Right.